Everybody, it's Miss Myring. I apologize now for the way that I sound. I'm a little stuffed up, so I sound a little funny. Today, I'm going to walk you through my character slides that I have for you real quick, and then I'm also going to walk you through the steal of indirect characterization, because I know that can be confusing, and a lot of you who are watching this are not able to be with us in class and listen to my little song and dance, as I like to call it, because I do kind of make a bit of a spectacle of myself when I'm in person. So going quickly through the what, why, how of why we're doing this and what we're doing. So what we are doing today and the next couple of days is dealing with identifying the types of characters and then character traits that those characters have. And then how we can read a text, whether it's a full story, a short story, whatever, and look at their traits and go, okay, I can see how that is a main trait for this character. Now, why do we need to learn this? Character traits and understanding them make it easier to understand why characters do what they do. And their actions make up the key parts of stories. Their actions make up stories. So you have to understand why they do that. What traits are causing this, or what reasons is causing this behavior, or be causing them to think this or do this. And the better you can understand characters, the simpler stories are going to become. You can just learn it and they're going to become much more lifelike. It's going to become much simpler. And then how we're going to do it, we're going to start by identifying types of characters. We're going to be going over some examples for all of them. And then I'm going to be talking a lot about how actors develop their characters, which is characterization, which is steal. So characters and characterization. One of the big reasons why I'm starting with this is, as middle schoolers, you have to change the way that you think about stories in general. You have to change the way you think about plot. You have to change the way you think about theme, because you are no longer reading these simple Jack and Jill C-spot run stories. They're more complex, they're more dynamic. So you have to start actually thinking while you read. It's not as simple as C-spot run. Spot runs fast, spot sets down. They have depth, they have complexity, especially when you're reading a good story. And they're what I like to call cookie cutter. When you're little, they're cookie cutter. They're the cut and dry bad guy. It is, oh yeah, that's a bad guy. And then there's the, oh, it's the hero. And there's no debating between them. There's no arguing between them. So we have to go away from this definition of a protagonist is just a good guy. He is the good guy of the story. And we can't go that way anymore. They're no longer just, oh, it's this knight in shining armor that slays the dragon and saves the princess and saves the day, or it's Superman. We can't do that. We have to go deeper, because we have these things called anti-heroes. And they don't fit that mold of, oh, it's Superman. Yes, clearly they are a good guy. No, we have to stick with, oh, it's the main character. Or maybe there's more than one, main characters. Because anti-heroes are like these gentlemen that are on the screen. They don't fall into that good guy category. Okay, both Gru and Ralph that are in the middle, they're actually villains in their movies. Gru goes to the villain bank, and Ralph is the villain in his video game. He wrecks things. And then we have Shrek, who's an ogre, who grinds your bones to make his bread, and he squashes your eyes into jelly. He's an ogre that people fear, which automatically makes him somebody that's not a quote-unquote good guy. And then we have Deadpool, who's a mercenary. He kills people for a living. But these guys are all at the center of their stories. And the anti-hero is so popular nowadays. Suicide Squad, Guardians of the Galaxy, the Assassin's Creed games. A lot of the stories that people are watching and reading have these anti-heroes in them. And just like how protagonist changes, antagonist has to change. It can't just be, oh, it's the bad guy. No, I'm not going to say that antagonist won't be a bad guy. That's not what I'm saying. Okay, you will have those Voldemorts where they're like, oh, okay, no, they're a bad guy. No, sometimes they're groups. Okay, later this year, the 8th graders are going to read Diary of Anne Frank with me. And the Nazis are the antagonist in that. Not just one person, them as a collective group. And then we also have natural disasters. All of those can be antagonistic. They can oppose or cause conflict with the protagonist. It can be a wolf attack, it can be a hurricane, a tornado. All of those have the potential to be antagonists. It's not just people. Now, the next type of character that we have, that we run into all the time, are dynamic characters. Now, these can also be called round characters. Those two definitions are very similar, so I tend to group them together. These are characters that are very lifelike because they, like us, they learn and they change and they grow. Now, I'm not saying that they grow physically, okay? It's not like, oh, he got taller. Yes, he's dynamic. No, that's not what I mean. They grow as people. They grow internally. They become more mature, or maybe they become more violent, or maybe they become more worldly. They just grow as a person. They are not the same person that they were when the movie began, or when the book began, or when the video game began, whichever story you're interacting with. So just going through these examples real quick. Marlin, Nemo's dad from Finding Nemo, at the beginning of his movie, he was a coward. In every definition of the word, he didn't want Nemo to do stuff. No, Nemo, we gotta go over here. No, you have to stay in the anemone. And throughout that whole movie, he's growing. He's becoming more brave. He's starting to realize bad things are going to happen, but you can work through them. You can be okay. Okay, Katniss is another great example of changing. She was forced. Okay, in her books and in her movies, she volunteers out of love to save her sister. But she's going into a place where she's forced to kill people to survive. No one can go through that and not come out a little changed, let alone a teenager. And then, of course, we have the Grinch, who is mean and he's downtrodden when it comes to Christmas and all this other stuff. But when he hears the singing from the Who's done in Whoville, he changes his mind and his heart grows three sizes, and he understands some of the joy in Christmas, and he returns the presents. Oh, yay, it's wonderful. So these all grow. Where static characters, and these are also called flat characters, these all stay the same. And they stay the same for various reasons. A lot of TV shows, especially humorous TV shows, they like static characters for the humor value. Okay, this pair in the middle, Coyote and Roadrunner. Every time a Looney Tunes cartoon comes on, and you see these two, you know what to expect. Coyote is going to come with this big elaborate plan to catch the Roadrunner, and the Roadrunner's going to get away, and then Coyote's going to get hurt somehow. He's going to get crushed by a truck, or maybe he's thrown off the edge of a cliff, or maybe he gets blown up. And it's funny. We giggle, we chuckle. And he's never going to learn. He's never going to go, I think I should start hunting a slower bird. Okay, it's just like SpongeBob. A lot of the characters in SpongeBob are static. Plankton is never going to stop hunting for the Krabby Patty. And SpongeBob is always going to be cheerful and bubbly and Okay, and then a lot of antagonists, going to that last picture, a lot of antagonists are static. Very few change. Okay, this one is from Lord of the Rings. This is Sauron the Deceiver from Lord of the Rings. He's never going to change, because his whole thing is conquering all life, all human beings, all living creatures on Middle-earth. So there's no room for him to grow, and it makes no sense for him to grow. So he's going to stay static, like the static on your TV. Doesn't change. Now, the last type of character I want to talk about is archetypes. And these are characters who are very stereotypical. Okay, they are very typical of a certain trait, of a certain person, of a certain group, or a certain thing. And for the people that were in class, I asked them what was a stereotype. And we came up with different ones. We came up with, there's always the stereotype of, oh, you've got glasses, you must be a nerd, you wear glasses. Or the dumb blonde stereotype, or, oh, you're a redhead, you must have a fiery temper. And whether or not they're true, that's not what we're talking about. We're just saying those are stereotypes. And archetypes fit those stereotypes. And there are movies, and there are TV shows, and there are books that make their money off of stereotypes. Okay, this picture on the left, Karen from Mean Girls, she is that perfect archetype of a dumb blonde. Throughout the movie, she's just doing all of these ditzy things, and she's like, wait, what? Okay, Glee, the pictures on the right, another great example of just those archetypal characters. The smart Asian, the nerd with glasses, the mean, popular cheerleader, the dumb jocks, that mean teacher that makes all the students' lives miserable. The whole show is just built on it. But then again, so are a lot of shows. There's a lot of shows out there that have archetypal characters. Okay, The Simpsons has quite a few archetypal characters. Family Guy has a few archetypal characters. It's just a tool. It's just characters we may run into. And there's actually an archetype storyline for characters. Okay, and I'm going to tell you a little story real quick with these characters. But the pictures on the screen are probably the most popular book and movie franchises of the last 100 years, maybe I'd argue. And feel free to disagree with me, it's okay. But it's Harry Potter, Hunger Games, Lord of the Rings, and Star Wars. Very successful, very, very popular, and very well written if you read them. And the storylines are very similar, though, when you boil it down to archetypes. So these stories start with the hero, who normally starts out lowly and meek and not somebody that a lot of people know or care about because they're just nobodies. And then all of a sudden, boom, they have some kind of interaction which throws them into the path of this great villain, this dark and ominous villain. And so now they have a purpose for their life. They have this journey that they have to go on. But the journey's scary, so who are you going to take but your loyal sidekick, who's trustworthy and going to be there for you, and he's going to pick up the slack that maybe you need in certain areas. And then you also have your other friend, your maiden, who is beautiful and wise and will be there for you for strategy and for advice. And when you need someone to be there in more of an intellectual category than the sidekick tends to be the brawn, where the maiden tends to be the brain. And then, of course, no good quest or no good journey is complete without a mentor to guide you. The old wise man. Someone who's been there, done that, and they're speaking from years of wisdom. And then those stories can get a little dark. You need to have a little levity. You need to have that trickster that shows up every now and then, just to make things funny, just to make things humorous, to break things up just a smidge. And there are so many other books, so many other movies that follow this archetypal storyline, these archetypal characters. Divergent, Maze Runner. I love the Aragon series, the Inheritance series. All of these have made their money with these characters. And we're going to read a book this year that follows this archetypal category. And we'll talk more about that then. Changing gears a little bit and getting into characterization. With characters, it's one thing to have them, but making them real takes talent, okay? People cry at books. People cry in movie theaters. People get mad. People get happy. People get scared. All because of characterization. Buying into the story that they're hearing. And this is how the author does it. The author uses characterization to hook the readers, to make them believe in the characters, in their quests, or whatever it is they're doing. And it's how they develop a character's traits, a character's personality, a character's appearance. So, we have to talk about characteristics first. These are the personality or the physical traits that an author gives a character. And just to break these down really quickly, because I know there's always at least one student that's like, wait, I don't know what that word means. Physical is appearance, okay? So when you're talking about physical traits, you're talking about what does this character look like? Are they tall? Are they short? Fat, skinny, blonde, brunette, redhead, gray, bald? I don't know. Purple hair, neon hair, tie-dye hair. It's what they look like. It's physical. You can see it. The personality is all of the inner stuff. Are they a loyal person, or are they more deceitful? Are they trustworthy? Are they kind? Are they rude? What kind of a person are they? Okay, and another name for characteristics is called character traits. And I will kind of flip back and forth between the two, just nonchalant, because they mean the same thing. Character traits, characteristics, they are the same thing. So, looking at this, it's a passage from Harry Potter. Perhaps it had something to do with living in a dark cupboard, but Harry had always been small and skinny for his age. He looked even small and skinnier than he really was, because all he had to wear were old clothes of Dudley's. And Dudley was about 4 times bigger than he was. Harry had a thin face, knobbly knees, black hair, and bright green eyes. He wore round glasses held together with a lot of Scotch tape because of all the times Dudley had punched him on the nose. The only thing Harry liked about his own appearance was a very thin scar on his forehead that was shaped like a bolt of lightning. So, this passage is a great example of physical appearance. Small, skinny, baggy clothes, thin face, knobbly knees, black hair, bright green eyes, round glasses held together with Scotch tape, and a thin scar on his forehead. There is no guessing what Harry looks like. His traits are all there laid out in black and white. And you even get a little bit of Dudley's. Dudley's apparently a very fat kid. He's 4 times bigger than Harry, so that means he is big. And what this is his physical appearance that is being told to us. And that leads us to characterization. Okay, when an author tells you a character's traits, this is called direct characterization, because there is no guessing. There is no guessing about Harry's hair color, Harry's eye color, his face shape, what his glasses look like. J.K. Rowling told us directly. And this is the easier one of the two. I would say this is much easier than indirect characterization, because there is no guessing. Okay, it's no different than this one. Jack and Dottie met on the beach and struck up a conversation. Dottie was the talker, the outgoing one, the extrovert. Jack was too shy around girls to say much at all. So if we were reading this book about Dottie and Jack, there would be no debate. There would be no oh, well, who's the talker? No, I think Jack could be the talker, actually. No, he can't. It's right there, second sentence. Dottie's the outgoing one. Dottie's the extrovert. Now, maybe Jack talks a little bit more around boys, but you should be able to picture this in your head. You should be able to paint this picture. A boy and a girl walking down the beach and Dottie just doing all the talking while Jack just watches. Maybe he nods every now and then. Maybe he's going, yeah, yeah. But he's not saying much. She's doing all the talking. And the same thing with this one, going back to Harry Potter. I could put a piece of paper in front of you and say, okay, draw Harry. And everyone would have a similar picture. Now, I'm not saying they would all be beautiful pictures. That's a whole nother thing. But I'm saying you could draw it. You would draw a small, skinny kid. You'd give him glasses. You'd give him black hair. You'd give him the scar. You'd give him those green eyes that he talks about. Because there is no guessing. It's directly told to you. It's direct characterization. Indirect characterization is the harder part. Okay? This is where the author shows you hints, and then you have to put all those pieces together. You have to put all those hints together. And it requires you to make inferences. Now, just a little reminder, inferences are educated guesses. So, you have to be the detective. That's why I have the picture of the magnifying glass on this slide. You have to look at the clues. And this is another difference in your reading. I'm going to say this a million times throughout the school year. Reading is thinking. You can't just read the words on the page and think that's going to be enough anymore. You have to be actively reading and making those educated guesses and going, okay, so wait, if the author is telling me this, what do I know about this character already? And then what does that mean? Okay, Now, there are 5 ways that the author can show you, that the author can give you these hints. And these are 5 things to pay attention to. And this is a very common acronym. Okay, a lot of ELA teachers use this acronym, STEAL, STEAL. And what it stands for is this: speech, thoughts, effects of others, actions, and looks. Now, when we're talking about all of these, we're talking about the character's speech, the character's thoughts, how the character affects others around him, the character's actions, and the character's looks. Okay, we're not talking about what other people say about a character. That's not it. Okay, we're not talking about how other characters act towards, no, that's not what we're talking about. All of these are using a character to make judgments, to make those inferences, to make those observations. Now, we're also kind of lucky because in real life, we do all of these things except for maybe read people's minds. We listen to how people talk. We notice how other people act around a certain person. We use a person's actions to kind of gauge how they're feeling. And we know we're not supposed to do this, okay? Every year I have kids tell me, "Miss Myring, my mom always said, don't judge a book by its cover." But we do. Everybody does. It's human nature. It's not something that we can ever truly stop ourselves from doing. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to break these all apart briefly. That way you can see kind of what I mean by each. I apologize. Like I said, I'm all stuffed up. So starting with speech, the way a person talks tells us a lot about them. Okay? And we just have to think about, well, what are some things that we learn about the way a person talks? Well, I can learn their emotions, their inflection, the way that they're talking can tell me how they're feeling. Okay, so like say if somebody's happy and they go, "Hi, how are you?" Or maybe they're kind of angry at you and you walk up to them and they're like, "Hi, how are you?" Or they're like, "Hi," and they don't even ask the "how are you." Okay, if somebody's feeling more melancholy or kind of bored, their tone becomes a lot flatter. "Hi, how are you?" Okay, we can learn location. Humans are awesome. Humans are like sponges. We kind of mimic where we are with the people that we're around. Whether that's we're near our friends, so we use more slang. Or maybe it's, oh, I just moved from a certain place, so I have an accent. Or just an accent in general tells us a lot about location. And it doesn't matter that it's like, oh, well, we speak English. We all sound the same. No, we do not. Okay, all across our country, we have different accents. Okay, we got the typical Southern accent that everybody thinks of when they start thinking about the United States. But the Southern accent is very unique. You got the Louisiana, where everything starts kind of slipping together, New Orleans and all that stuff. You got more of maybe a deeper accent, maybe in Texas. I've heard a couple of deep accents in Kentucky. I've had a couple of students that had that thick Kentucky accent. Like I had a kid the other year who was like, "Well, I'm from Kentucky," and it was real deep and it was real thick. And then like you'll meet somebody from like Georgia that might have a little bit of a higher Southern accent. Or Bama. Bama tends to have a certain accent. And of course my accents are all completely made up. I don't have the Southern accent. But they are different. And the more you interact with people, the more you'll be like, huh, it is different. It is different. But we also have accents like we've got the Boston accent. People from Boston have a certain accent. We've always got that New York accent where people there's certain ways that you can talk in New York, because there's that one, and then there's also this one that can kind of go into the Jersey one a little bit, where you talk a little bit with more emphasis on certain things. And apologies for my accents, like I said, my voice is all stuffed up. But even here in Ohio, we have our own accents. Okay, we live in this small little rural community, but you'll get some people that have a little twang in their accent. Like my mom does worshing. She's never lived anywhere but Ohio, but she worshes things. She's like, okay, well, did you do the wash? And I'm like, huh? The wash, come on, we've got laundry to wash. She puts an R in it. And that's kind of a local thing. We all kind of do that. You'll hear different people now and then from this area that do that. Cleveland's got its own accent. They do like the flattening of the vowels, and I'm awful at this, but it's kind of like they, I always have to start it with this phrase. It's the snack pack factory. So when they talk, they kind of flatten the vowel. And then you got people from Minnesota. Minnesota kind of has this like Canadian thing going on there where it's like go Vikings. But they're all different accents, and they have them all over. Colorado, California, Kansas, it doesn't matter where. We talk differently based on what we're around and who we're around. And that's any country. Okay, England speaks English too. But not when you go to England, not everyone's going to sound like this. Not everyone's going to be posh and do this, that, and this. Because you've got different kind of countries that used to be there. Manchester has its own accent. You've got the Cockney accent. You've got the Scottish accent. You've got all of these different accents going on in one country. And that's any country. You go to Germany, they're not going to all speak German with the same accent. There's High German, Low German, there's just different enunciations and different different emphasis on different vowels and different sentence structures, I guess is the best way I want to put that. So we can learn location. And like I said, not just in English, every language. None of the Spanish-speaking countries speak Spanish the same way. Same thing with Portuguese and Mandarin and Hindi. They're all unique based on location. And we can learn kind of things about maybe structural things with a person's mouth, like maybe certain speech impediments come from the way a person's mouth is shaped or the way that their the roof of their mouth was constructed. Or like my brother, he talks through his teeth, and he kind of developed that as a way of avoiding talking. My younger brother, he hates when I talk about this, but he talks like this through his teeth, and you can't really see me right now, obviously, but he clenches his jaw to his upper teeth, and he talks through them. And it's all because when he was little, he didn't like talking. He wasn't comfortable with talking. He had to go to a speech therapist, and that made him self-conscious even more. And so now he's in his 20s, and he does that. And it's just a thing now. It's not a big deal. You can still understand him. It's just how he talks. And it's no different with people who have lisps or people who have trouble with certain letters. It's just part of their structure. And it's just things to pay attention to, things that are a part of their character. And then the last big thing that I'm going to talk about with speech is you can learn a character's education level based on the way that they talk. How well they enunciate things, how well they pronounce things. Are they using proper grammar? All of that can come through in speech. And this example I have, this is from Mark Twain and the Adventures of Huckleberry Finn. And Mark Twain is really good at writing two things. He's good at writing an accent. Okay, very few authors are like fantastic at writing accents. J.K. Rowling does a good job. There's several other writers that do a good job, and Mark Twain does a very good job, especially with the Southern accent. In high school, you guys are most likely going to read The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn. And it's hard to read because Jim has a very thick Southern accent. And Mark Twain writes it so well that it sometimes just needs to be read aloud. So like when I look at this, I'm going to try to read it straight through with no accent. But you'll notice while I read that you can't help but put the accent with it. Because you have to read it like it's written. You can't fix it because that's not how it's written. Okay, so I'll start. Like I said, I'm going to try to fight the accent as much as possible. Well, it's a blame ridiculous way, and I don't want to hear no more about it. D'ain't no sense in it, Jim said, lying back on the raft. Looky here, Jim. Does a cat talk like we do? Okay, I'm going to read it one more time just to see if you guys can hear it. Try to listen, especially when I get to Jim's second part of his first sentence and then his second sentence. Well, it's a blame ridiculous way, And I don't want to hear no mo' about it. D'ain't no sense in it, Jim said, lying back on the raft. Looky here, Jim. Does a cat talk like we do? Huck replied. So when you read it, you can't help but put the accent in. Especially when you get to that part, I don't want to hear no mo' about it. D'ain't no sense in it. He takes letters out and he changes the spelling of don't and more, ridiculous, because that's the way that Jim would have said it. Jim wouldn't have said it with perfect grammar, with perfect inflection. Because in this book, Jim is a runaway slave. And you guys find out when you get to this part in history class this year, runaway slaves were never, or I shouldn't say never, they were rarely educated. The slave owners like to keep them as uneducated as possible. And you can see that. You can see that in the words that he picks and the way that he says things. Now, even Huck, who would still technically have the accent, you can tell that he's not completely educated. He's more educated than Jim, but he's not completely educated. Looky here, Jim, does a cat talk like we do? Okay, just that wording, just that phrase, it's just odd. It's not something maybe that a completely formally educated person would say it in. Because Huck's had some schooling. He's a runaway. Or, he's not a runaway, he's an orphan. Sorry, he's an orphan. So he's gotten some education, but he's still not like a fully educated, completely grammatically correct kind of a person. And we can see that based on the way both of these guys talk. And that's the power of speech. Speech can tell us so much about a character. Now, moving on to the next one. Thoughts. It gives us a peek into the reader's head. That is one of the beautiful things about books. We can't read minds in real life. But in a book, we can take a step inside a character's head and we can figure out what in the heck they're thinking. Okay, so if I look at this example, Leon couldn't believe what he'd gotten himself into. How had this happened, he thought. I've never held a gun in my life, much less gone hunting for something as big as a moose. So all of that would be in his head, but we can see his worry. Okay, we can figure out, okay, he's a little bit confused. He didn't know how this happened. And we can put those pieces together of, okay, maybe he's a peaceful guy. Maybe he's not an avid hunter. And I'm going to make this argument, and when you guys come back, you can feel free to argue with me. I'm going to make the argument that Leon's probably somebody who gives in pretty easily. I'm going to say he's probably somebody that's really kind of a pushover when it comes to big decisions. Just because of the fact that he's questioning, well, how in the heck has this happened? How did I get roped into this hunting trip? If he really didn't want to go, all he had to do was probably say no. Just based on this, we don't have the full thing, but all of that comes through with his thoughts. Now, on the next slide, I've got a video, and I'm going to want you to watch it. And as the video is playing, just in your head, do two things. Try to find some of the feelings that's going through this character's head. Okay, the character we're going to be paying attention to is the white-haired gentleman. Then, see if you can figure out a character trait of his. Now, his feelings are going to be easy. He's got pretty obvious feelings going on. But try to find a character trait and think about it and see if you can figure out one of his character traits. And then I'll be back after.
Dearly beloved, we are gathered here together in the presence of family, friends, and loved ones for the purpose of uniting in matrimony.
All I could think of was the part I had to play. Then suddenly I went blank. I had one line and I couldn't remember it. When the Reverend said, "Who presents this woman?" was I supposed to say, "That's me?" Or was it, "I do?" I couldn't think. I felt every eye in the place boring into the back of my neck, waiting for me to screw up, when suddenly it was upon me.
Who presents this woman in holy matrimony?
I do.
Annie and Brian, you have come here today to join your hands.
Who presents this woman?
Always
This
remember,
woman.
This vow of marriage is most solemn.
But she's not a woman, she's
not to be
just a
entertained
kid.
lightly,
And she's leaving us.
and with a deep realization of its obligations and responsibilities.
I realized at that moment that I was never going to come home again and see Annie at the top of the stairs. Never going to see her again at our breakfast table in her nightgown and socks. I suddenly realized what was happening. Annie was all grown up and leaving us. And something inside began to hurt.
So, clearly, he's feeling a lot of mixed emotions. He's nervous because, oh my gosh, what do I say? What do I do? What if I say the wrong thing? He's got that nervous jitters around him. And then when he gets back to his seat, it's a lot of sadness. It's a lot of that, oh my goodness, life is changing. Oh my goodness, she's getting married. And with those feelings and with those thoughts that he's projecting to us, we can really kind of figure out that, one, he's probably a really caring dad. He probably cares about his daughter quite a lot. But then I can also maybe take that guess of he's probably really controlling. He might be a very clingy dad because he doesn't want to let go. And then he's got that thing of, well, I can feel everybody's eyes on the back of my neck. So maybe he's a person that kind of worries about what other people think. Okay, so we'd have to watch the whole movie to know if that was true or not. But based on his thoughts, we can make those inferences. Based on his thoughts, we can make those guesses, those educated guesses. Okay, now moving on. This one is probably one of the most tricky ones that people tend to struggle with. It's the effects of others towards the character. Okay, and what this means just in layman's terms is, this is how do other people react or behave around this character? Okay, it's no different than, say, you're walking into the cafeteria and you see your friends sitting at a table and you sit down and they all get up. Well, that's going to tell you quite a bit about how they're feeling about you. Maybe they're mad at you that day. Or maybe you said something and they're just like, oh, I am so done with this person. Or maybe there's a new kid in school and they sit down at an empty table and a bunch of other people sit at the table with them. Well, maybe they want to get to know this person. Maybe they want this person to like them. Or maybe this person's popular. Maybe they're not a new kid at all. Okay, you can tell a lot about how people treat a character, treat a person. Do they respect them? Do they like them? Are they happy with them? Are they mad with them? Are they kind of indifferent, or are they scared or worried about that person? All of that can come through with how do other people treat them. Okay, and once again, I've got 2 videos, and just watch them for other people's reactions. How do other people treat these 2 characters? And then what does that teach us?
Did you guys see the moon landing on TV? Yeah, I can't believe it. It's so cool. Yeah, and you know what?
Excuse me,
I was talking to
Lisa?
Billy the other day. No way. He is so cute.
Hey, Lisa, I was wondering if you...
Ew! Gru touched Lisa! Gru touched Lisa! Ew! Lisa's got Grudies!
How do I even begin to explain Regina George?
Regina George is flawless. She has 2 Fendi purses and a silver Lexus.
I hear her hair's insured for $10,000.
I hear she does car commercials in Japan.
Her favorite movie is Varsity Blues.
One time she met John Stamos on a plane.
And he told her she was pretty.
One time, she punched me in the face. It was awesome.
Okay, so clearly both of these videos have very different reactions to the character. Gru is the unpopular, probably most unpopular kid in the school. The weird looking one, none of his clothes matched anybody else. And the minute he just tapped that girl on the shoulder, everyone freaked out. Like, oh my goodness, it's not just a little like, oh, he touched her, go away. No, they're screaming, they're jumping over a wall, they're jumping in trash cans because she's got Grooties. Ah! It's very telling. Then the opposite one, the clip from Mean Girls about Regina George. She's clearly very, very popular. Everybody knows gossip about her. Everybody knows different things about her. But she's also a bully. That last girl, as funny as it was, she punched me in the face once. It was awesome. She's a bully. She punches people. But clearly she's so popular that they don't care. And all of that just comes from other people's comments. Now, a character's actions is kind of the opposite. It's not how other people act, it's how this person acts, this character. So, once again, what do we learn about character? What do we learn about actions? Well, we learn about emotions, again. How we think, how somebody's feeling, what somebody's thinking. We cross our arms when we're upset, or we touch our faces when we're upset. We kind of close in on ourselves. When we're happier, we're more open, our heads up a little higher, and different things like that. And then once again, we can get history from a person's actions. What caused the person to maybe move this way, or why do they have to take certain actions? Now, once again, I'm going to use my family, and I know they hate this, I know they do. My dad has a pretty significant length difference when it comes to his legs. My dad has 4 inches difference between his right leg to his left. And when he walks, you can see it because his shoulders and his whole upper body does this huge dip every time he takes a step onto that shorter leg. And it tells you about his background because he was born with a club foot, and when he was younger, he had a series of surgeries to fix it. And when he was, I want to say it was 10, I could very well be wrong, a doctor nicked his growth plate. And because he nicked the growth plate in his knee, his one leg didn't grow properly. And it's 4 inches. He's either 5'10" or 5'6", depending on which foot he's standing on. But those actions tell you a lot about my dad's character as well. So it's not just his past. My dad has a very good pain tolerance. My dad masks his pain really well because he's had to live with this. Because he's had to walk with this. My dad's got bad knees. My dad's got bad ankles, bad hips. He's got a bad back now because of this height indifference. And he's got to stand on his tiptoe the entire time. He doesn't like those shoes that you can wear that have the lifts in them. And so because of that, because of his past, because of the way he moves, you can learn a little bit about his behavior, his character. Okay, my older brother, so I've talked about my younger brother now. My older brother, he is a very quiet man. And when he talks to you, he kind of tilts his head in towards you. So like he'll tilt his head a little bit to the right, and he'll lean in when he's talking to you. Just a smidge. You don't really see it unless you pay attention to it. And I only know it because I've grown up with him. And he's very attentive. And a lot of people who don't know this would just think, oh, he's a really good listener. My brother's deaf in one ear. He does that to compensate for his hearing. And that's part of the reason why he's so quiet. My brother is such a quiet person because he can't hear out of one ear. And he knows, okay, if I lose the other ear, I am toast. So he's really protective of that other ear. So when we're in loud places, he'll stand in the very back. He'll, like if we're at a concert and there's speakers around or there's something that's causing a lot of noise, he'll stand as far away from it as possible. Or like if you're in a crowded restaurant and everybody's talking and there's music playing in the background, he'll actually turn and face you completely because he wants to hear. He wants to be a part of the conversation. And it's those subtle actions that you pay attention to that tell you a lot about the characters. Once again, I got clips to show us to give us just some examples of this to make it a little more challenging so that we have to pay attention to the actions. I've taken the sound away from both of the clips. And if you know the movies, great, fantastic, you're already a step ahead. But if you don't, Pay attention to the characters' actions. How are they behaving? What are they doing with their bodies? And try to see if you can get a little bit of those emotions, that background, that history. Why are they doing what they're doing? And then we'll move on to the last one after that. Okay, so looking back at the first one, that young man, he's stumbling around. He's gawking at everything. He almost gets hit by a car. And anybody who's seen Back to the Future, they know why. But for some of us that maybe haven't, it's clear he's confused. He's puzzled about something. And he's not comfortable. Like, that's why he's looking around so much. He's just, wait a minute, what? What? And anybody who's seen Back to the Future, they'll tell you, oh, this is when Marty first went back in time. He's confused because it's his hometown. It's where he's lived. But everything's different. Nothing's the same. And he's just puzzled by all of this because he doesn't realize it yet. He has no clue that he's gone back 30 years. Then with the second one, Emily Osment in the movie Cyberbully. She's got her arms crossed. She's got those kind of like glazed look in her eyes, like maybe she's been crying. She's very clearly, visibly upset. And the way she's treating her mom's leaning in, her mom's trying to be comforting, and she's just rolling her eyes. She's scoffing a little bit, you can tell. And when she calls her dad, she's just upset. Okay, going back to when I said earlier, like a human's actions, like when we're upset, we act certain ways. We do. We like touching our faces. We cross our arms over our bodies. It's just human behavior. We take comfort from that subconsciously. Whether that's actually like touching her face, like where she had her hand in front of her face and it looked like she was getting ready to bite her nails. All of that is just coping mechanisms. It's trying to make yourself feel better. It's trying to make yourself calmer. And those are human reactions. So when authors are writing, both of these scenes would be very vivid if they were written down. Okay, a book of the Back to the Future might say, as Marty approached the town square, he couldn't believe his eyes. He kept looking from one thing to the next, taking it all in. It was Mill Valley, but nothing was what it was a couple of hours before. And so all of that would have been description. All of that would have been told to us. And we could then infer his confusion from that. Now, the last one, looks. And this is, like I said, going back to that whole thing, well, we're told not to judge people. It's just called being a kind human. Oh, don't judge people what they look like. We need to judge them on the inside. And that's all well and good. I'm not saying don't do that. But I'm saying as humans, we do. We judge people based on how they look all the time. And what a person's looks say about them is significant. It's important. Okay? When we're in class, the first thing I do is I have students kind of tear me apart. I go, okay, let me have it. Tell me about me. And from my own appearance, they normally come up with stuff like, oh, you like wearing layers, you must be cold. Or, oh, you always wear pants, you never wear skirts, you're not very girly. Oh, you have your hair in a ponytail, da-da-da-da-da. All of which is true. And I don't judge anybody when they're like, oh, well, you don't wear heels like Mrs. So-and-so. And they're right, I don't. My looks in and of themselves, especially when I'm teaching, I like being comfortable above all else. And I like being warm. And I'm a very cold-blooded person, so I am. I'm always in sweaters. I'm always in layers. I'm always in pants. Oh, geez, I can't imagine wearing a skirt to school. I would freeze. And I'm not girly. I'm a tomboy. And when they say stuff about, like, oh, your hair's in ponytails, very true. I don't like my hair in my face. I do put my hair in ponytails. And I don't ever wear heels because, once again, comfort. And another thing, I'm tall enough in my mind. I don't need to be 6 foot. I'm 5'9". I don't need 3-inch heels during the day. And it's all very true. And that's what we can learn from looks. We can learn, okay, well, how tired was somebody when they got up in the morning? Did they take a lot of time to pick out their outfits? Or did they just pull what was ever on the floor and put it on? Are they a wrinkled mess? Is their clothes washed? That can tell you sometimes, what is their socioeconomic background? Are they wealthy? Are they not? We can see all of that from looks. We can learn personality from outfits. Hey, like I said, when the kids pick on my outfits and they go, oh, you're a tomboy, you're not very girly. Completely true. I will not be the person wearing the sparkly tops or the pink stuff or the frilly, lacy, girly. That's just not me. I like bright colors. Like, you'll see me wearing like yellow pants or maybe a top with a big pattern on it. But it won't be girly. It won't be flowers. It won't be anything like that. Mine's probably stripes or polka dots. And that's just me. And we do like to express ourselves in the way that we dress. A lot of people maybe take pride in their hair or how their makeup's done. Or maybe some people it's their shoes. They take a lot of pride in their shoes because they spend a lot of money on them. Shoes are expensive. Maybe some people it's their jeans. They really like having the jeans with the holes in them. Or maybe it's about having the latest sports jersey. Maybe, I don't know, the Browns came out with a new jersey for the new player. Our looks say a lot about us. And paying attention to them in books is so important. Because sometimes authors give us good descriptions of what people look like. Their outfits, their hair, their accessories, whether they're well kept or if they're dirty. And all of those things are clues we have to pay attention to. We have to be willing to notice. We can't just go, oh, it's their outfit description. I can skip this paragraph. No, that can be a very valid place to look for clues. So that's all I have. That is Steal. If you have any questions about maybe effects of others, or maybe I confused you with my things about actions, feel free to contact me, okay? Reach out and email me, or you can get a hold of me through the Remind app, okay? I hope you guys are all doing well. I can't wait to see you back in class, and have a good night. Bye.